Right, good morning. It is 10 o'clock, maybe 10, yeah, 10 o'clock. And this is the regular open meeting of the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission on July 24, 2025. And we will go ahead and get started with our meeting by doing the roll call.
Mr. Nyberg? I am here. Mr. Aguilar?
Present.
Mr. O'Connell? Here. All commissioners are here. You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and do the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship and commitment.
Great. Thank you for that. Commissioners, we have an agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda that has been posted? Seeing none, I will move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, and maybe all those in favor say aye. Okay, so none opposed, so we'll go ahead and then move on to the next section of the agenda, which is the announcement section. I have a couple of announcements to start with, and the first one being that in terms of hearings, on August 4, there is a public hearing scheduled for PNM's application for a Renewable Energy Act plan for 2026. That's in docket number 2542 UT, and that will be a virtual hearing. I also want to announce that Meredith Tidwell, who is our DOE fellow and has been for almost 2 years, is leaving the commission. Her fellowship is ending and she's moving to Houston to be closer to friends and family. We appreciate her contributions, and whoever ends up hiring her is very smart for doing so. So today's her last day in person, but she'll be able to stay on for through the end of August, working remotely. The good news is that we are replacing Meredith with 3 new DOE fellows, and hopefully I'm not stealing Choya's thunder here, but I thought it was relevant. We're getting 3 new fellows, and they will be starting sometime in August. So that is very exciting. Those are the announcements that I have. Commissioners, do you have any announcements?
I just want to join you in thanking Meredith. She gets to brag it took 3 people to replace it.
Somebody said, have a happy last day. The only one to have a happy last day because the rest of us aren't too happy about it.
Then turn to our general counsel's office to see if there are any announcements.
I don't have any announcements, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, so that is it in terms of announcements then. The next item on the agenda is public comment. Don't think we have anybody in the room for public comment. Patrick, do we have anybody online for public comment?
Mr. Chair, we don't have anyone for public comment online.
Okay. Thank you. So next we have the Employee of the Month announcement. I believe that is Commissioner O'Connell's privilege today.
Yeah, it's my privilege to announce Employee of the Month, and we have him with us this morning, Justin Garcia. So congratulations. For those of you who come to the building, Justin's frequently the first person you see when you walk in the door. And so in addition to the good work that I'll read from the proclamation, he's your guy when you walk through the door here, so. So Mr. Justin Garcia serves as Executive Secretary, Administrative Assistant in Consumer Relations Division and Public Regulation Commission. Has worked at the PRC for 8 years and 6 months. And the nomination that got you this recognition says Justin consistently goes above and beyond to assist everyone wherever he can. Amen to that. He was instrumental in getting everything purchased for IT during the end of fiscal year 2025. Furthermore, he always comports himself with professionalism and as the face of the agency demonstrates an utmost respect towards everyone who comes into the building. Finally, his unbelievable patience and natural ability to connect with people shows every time he communicates with external stakeholders and internal staff. And again, I can personally attest to that. Justin continues to serve the PRC with dedication and great ability. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission of the state of New Mexico congratulates Justin Garcia on his selection as Employee of the Month for August 2025. So congratulations, Justin. Glad you could be here.
Well, in addition to being greeted by a friendly face and voice with Justin, he also often makes it smell like coffee and donuts when you walk in, which is another positive. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of prior meeting minutes. And we have a set of minutes for June 26, 2025. That was a regular open meeting. I saw that there were some small edits made to those meeting minutes, and I made some very small changes as well. Nothing controversial. It was like deleting a comma, that kind of stuff. Commissioners, are there any other changes or comments on those meeting minutes? It looked,
I was gonna say, I move for approval of them.
I second.
Commissioner Nyberg? Commissioner Aguilar?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connell?
Yes.
The motion to approve the minutes passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Great. So we have a set of consent agenda items and we have 6 of them. I guess I'll open by making a motion to approve those action items, and then we can see if there's any discussion on any of them. So I would move to approve the consent action items. Is there any discussion, any comments that Commissioner you have on those items?
None for me.
I think we're ready for a vote.
Commissioner Nyberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Aguilar?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connell?
Yes.
The motion to approve the 6 consent agenda action items passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and 6 consent agenda items. We also have a 7th consent agenda item. And maybe just for clarity, we could vote on this one separately. So that's a Pipeline Safety Bureau matter. Any discussion on that? All right, then I will move to approve the Pipeline Safety Bureau matter on the consent agenda as well.
Second.
It's not. No, so it's not on the yeah, it is on the consent agenda. Yeah.
It's a little confusing because it's section B because it's not a regular utility, it's pipeline safety, but it's the same thing. Thanks for catching that, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Nyberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Aguilar,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connell.
Yes.
The motion to approve the pipeline safety bureau matter that's on section B of the consent agenda passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Fisk, thanks for joining us. I didn't even see or hear you sit down. But yes, you're up. We have the regular action items next. And we'll go ahead and get started with the first item, which is 2534 UT, and it will be presented by Mr. Russell Fisk. Turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. So this is the report concerning the New Mexico Telecommunications Act and its impact upon telecommunications service in New Mexico, specifically with regard to the one incumbent local exchange carrier or ILEC that serves more than 50,000 access lines in the state. That's CenturyLink QC, also known as Lumen. This report provides information as per section 63 9A21 of the statute about impacts in various areas, especially with regard to amendments to the act that were made in 2017 and 2023. And impacts to rates, service quality, et cetera. I've also provided you with an order adopting the report. And the proposed order would make certain findings with regard to claims made by CenturyLink for confidential treatment pursuant to the Uniform Trade Secrets Act. This order would find that the information that CenturyLink seeks to have protected as a trade secret, that they have not made that showing. With regard to statewide infrastructure investment data, these are simply numbers. These are simply statewide numbers of investment amounts. I don't believe they made a showing of independent economic value to competitors. The claims that were made in a very vague and conclusory way. If the commission were providing information at a very local level about infrastructure investment or employment in a certain area or service quality and in particular areas, I think there might be, not conceding this, an argument that would allow competitors to see which areas are vulnerable to competition. But this report doesn't provide that. This report is at a statewide level because the NMTA is at a state level. So I think that this report as it is satisfies the requirements. And because it's at a statewide level, I don't think that CenturyLink really has a colorable argument. They certainly haven't made it, that there would be an advantage to competitors of knowing how many employees they have in the state, how much they're investing on a yearly basis across the state. It's just specifically. I believe that I know that Commissioner Aguilera and Commissioner Knight, you're aware I made a revision this morning. Sorry, going through at the last minute. Sometimes you notice something you didn't notice before. On page 2 of the report, I've added footnote 8. I think that when the Chief of Staff's office went through the report, if you look at the last paragraph of the introduction, it said, I won't go through the whole thing, but it said, in accordance with section 639A8, this report addresses the framework for potential re-regulation of basic local exchange service in deregulated areas. My revision would take that out because there are no such areas. As is described in section 3 of the report, the commission hasn't deregulated any areas, any wire center service areas pursuant to the effective competition portion of the statute, which is what they're referring to specifically there. And so there's really nothing to report. The commission hasn't had any procedures to re-regulate those areas because no area has been so deep. And that's, and so the footnote that I added for footnote 8 says that specifically. It says, the commission notes that as the commission has not deemed any areas to be subject to effective competition, the commission has had no need to consider re-regulation of any such areas pursuant to, and then it cites the section that was actually being referred to and sort of repeated, part of it took out. And it says, see section 3 of this report where the report notes that that no wire center area has been determined to be subject to effective competition. And so with that, I will take any questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair. I do have have had one concern with this, and I've talked to Mr. Fisk about it several times, and I'm still not quite sure that it's sending the right message, and so we probably ought to discuss it. But on page 2 of the report, in that first full paragraph, it basically says that the commission ultimately did not submit a second report to the legislature. And what jumped off the page to me is that we were required to submit a report every 3 years, and yet we submitted one in 2019. We did not submit one in 2022, and there was no real explanation that I saw that would keep us from maybe getting some spears thrown at us. So I mentioned that to Mr. Fisk, and I thought we needed to provide some explanation. Well, we kind of do so in footnote 7. But what I'd like to get some idea of is whether or not just putting that in the footnote really conveys a message, because there's good reason why a report was not submitted in 2022. In fact, the reason I thought that it was plausible was because that was the year that the commission changed. Went from an elected commission to an appointed commission. And of course, the commission at that time would not know all the things that they were supposed to do because they're all brand new. There was no carryover. And you had basically new staff as well. But that apparently was not the only reason why something wasn't filed. The other reason was the information that was provided in 2022 was deemed confidential. And upon the commission discussing that issue with Legislative Council Service, there was no mechanism for Legislative Council Service to honor the confidentiality of that information. Therefore, they could not receive the information. So I thought we needed to put on the paper some clarification as to why we did not fulfill our statutory duty and avoid maybe some criticism from legislators that they would ever pick this up. Because I do know one thing that really gets them mad is when an agency doesn't do what the law says they're supposed to do. And so I was trying to provide, I thought that this document needed to upfront address that issue clearly, and that there was communications with the legislature in 2022, but no report was sent because of the confidentiality issues and they could not protect the confidentiality of it. And so that to me is a good reason. We had the report, we talked to them about it, but they couldn't actually conceive it. So I don't know what words we need to put on the paper to reflect that, but I don't want us hanging, maybe being on the end of some sharp criticism that we failed to comply with the statute of 2022. So your thoughts are probably much better than mine.
That sounds right to me, and I think adding the explanation where you mentioned that the report was not filed would probably be the most effective place to insert it, so the conversation is together. So maybe moving from the footnote to the body, that explanation, and as you know, would be supplemented. I wouldn't include the part about the commission transitioning because I'm not sure that was the issue, since the you know, the new commission started the year after it was due in 2023. And so, but I think the other arguments are persuasive as well, and I think you're exactly right that we should provide a reason and a more coherent story on this. So my suggestion would be to move up the information from the footnote to the body and then edit it further as maybe needed.
Yeah, that sounds like the right solution to me, just promote what's in the footnote. Because stylistically, footnotes are good places for references, chasing them. Things that aren't related directly to the decision or what you're trying to get into. I think if we're trying to document our history with finance reports, that's where the fun.
Well, Mr. Chair, if you're ready for a motion, I would be happy to make the motion to accept or to approve the order adopting the report to the legislature as presented before us, and allow Mr. Fisk to work with footnote 7, moving that information to the text before some report to the legislature.
And I will second that. And now that we have a motion and second, just want to check to see if there are any other issues for discussion.
I just want to say I appreciate the process that I know the chief staff's office got involved in drafting this report, which I think is appropriate here because it's a communication with legislative body and they're trying to improve the mutual understanding of what they do and what we do. So that's a good step on that road. So just wanted to acknowledge, in addition to the work that Telecom Bureau and Mr. Fisk provide, and we also added another voice to it. And that was beneficial.
I agree, and I thought they did a really nice job with the edits that they provided. Commissioner Nybert, are you comfortable with OGC going back to make those edits, or would you like to see it before it's issued?
And I have had numerous conversations on this, and I think there were just some misunderstanding as to where that it should go. So I think we could easily transition information from the footnote to the text. I don't need to see it. Yeah, see it. Okay.
Thank you, and Mr. Fisk, if you have any questions, please reach out to Commissioner Nybert. Always.
Okay, thanks.
So we have a motion in a second. And we've discussed the issues. I think we're ready for a vote.
Commissioner Nyberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Aguilar,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connell.
Yes.
The motion to approve the order in 250034 UT with the edit passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. With that, we could move on to the next item on the regular action section of our agenda, which is 2545. And this is an El Paso Electric matter. Mr. Fisk is the attorney on this one, so I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. On June 4th, EPE filed a petition requesting either that the commission clarify that its current IRP rule doesn't apply to the request for proposals that EPE are planning to do. The current IRP rule, which was adopted effective 2022, has requirements for RFPs, including the use of an independent monitor, that the prior version, the pre-2022 version of the IRP rule did not have. So EP requests either clarification that those portions of the current rule don't apply to its RFP, or if the commission would determine that those provisions do apply, then they request a variance. The order that I have provided would find that there's no need for a variance because it would grant the request for clarification. The order would find that sections 12 and 14 of the current rule, which were added to the rule, the requirements for RFPs do not apply to this RFP because the IRP that is currently effective, the most recent IRP that has been accepted by the commission from EPE, was filed and accepted under the old rule in 2021. And this order would find that because the requirements in the current rule under sections 12 and 14 expressly refer to something called a statement of need, which was something that was added to the IRP requirements under the current rule in 2022 and didn't apply IRP to EPE's currently effective IRP because it was accepted in 2021. That the new RFP provisions, the current ones, should not apply. And with that, I will take any questions.
Well, thank you for that presentation. I have some comments that I wanted to make on this, and apologize in advance because I have a few pages in front of me. So in this issue, the parties have not raised any disagreement that the proposed capacity addition is a material event that modifies EP's 2021 IRP. I'm not in complete agreement with that position, but I do see how that position is supportable. Regardless, the commission should not be placed in the position to answer this question. I think that the most logical and prudent course would have been, and still is, for EP to plan for the resource additions under the current rules. The current IRP rule, as you mentioned, Mr. Fisk, became effective in 2022, almost 3 years ago. And El Paso's IRP was filed about 4 years ago. So I think the ideal approach would have been for El Paso to be more proactive here and initiate the process earlier that would result in an RFP earlier. And there is precedent for a utility coming in and asking the commission for authority to start the process earlier. SPS made that request and the commission granted it to allow the utility to meet the increasing loads that SPS was seeing. In that case, the utility did not propose skipping steps in sections, the steps in sections 12 and 14, which are designed to ensure that the procurement process is competitive and fair. Moreover, EP had not communicated or signaled to the commission that it intended to conduct an RFP earlier than scheduled. In fact, in October of last year, EPE filed a notice of its intent to file the statement of need by September of this year. And just a few months ago this year, the commission initiated conversations on economic development and summer readiness and resource adequacy. And EP did not discuss the need to conduct an RFP earlier. So my question is, what has changed in those 2 or a little bit more months? And it really seems to me like there has not been effective communication. Another concern is that El Paso has not adequately explained the capacity needs. Its initial request lacked detail, and the commission gave El Paso an opportunity to fill in the gaps through a response to a bench request. However, the information that El Paso provided does not clearly support the expedited capacity need that it now claims. And El Paso says that the company plans to request proposals for resources ranging from 500 megawatts to 2,500 megawatts of energy and capacity to meet potential large load interconnections. And by the way, those 2,500 megawatts would more than double El Paso's current capacity, because according to their application, they have less than 2,400 megawatts right now. So I'm wondering, does El Paso have the transmission and distribution capacity to warrant the additional generation capacity on an expedited basis? Do they have that already? And if El Paso had that transmission capacity available, I think these customers would have already been interconnected because they would have identified the capacity. So that brings me to another point raised in the comments. Former Commissioner Fishman states that El Paso has created a scenario where the commission must make a rushed choice between protecting consumers or expediting potential economic development by up to 10 months. And he says that there's nothing special about the July 1 RFP and that this is a manufactured emergency. El Paso appealed the RFP and independent monitor requirements to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court instead affirmed the commission's rules. And also in the economic development inquiry, El Paso's recommendation to the commission is to delete the request for proposals process and the independent monitor process from the rule. In their application, they say that EP would like clarification of whether it must follow the mandatory solicitation processes of section 12 and 14. So it's clear that EP doesn't like the RFP and independent monitor requirements. So I come back to the fact that El Paso has not communicated credible arguments to suggest that the RFP is an emergency that warrants skipping the processes that the commission implemented to ensure a fair and competitive procurement and to include stakeholder involvement. So without a demonstration of urgency, this looks really like an attempt to skip the RFP and independent monitor requirements. The information on large load requests in New Mexico that EP provided us includes many requests made in 2024. So I maintain that the most prudent course would have been to come to the commission earlier. All that said, I want to help El Paso, and I want to help the customers who are trying to interconnect. If there is a legitimate economic development request, please come talk to us about that and communicate it with us and stakeholders. Explain the opportunities and the problems, and you have a reasonable commission here that wants to help you find a solution. So El Paso had several options for managing this situation, and they chose to go with the one that has the least amount of stakeholder and commissioner feedback. And as I mentioned previously, at a prior open meeting, I don't want this commission to be the reason economic development doesn't happen. That doesn't mean that we have to skip the stakeholder processes and the processes built into the rule to ensure a fair and competitive procurement process. So I will conclude my remarks by stating that I intend to vote no on the order and would instead support an expedited IRP process that balances the consumer protection with the urgency that EP is now bringing to us. Those are my comments. Turn it over to Commission.
Got a question. Is anybody from El Paso at the meeting here to answer questions? I mean, oddly, there's nobody here in the room, but. I mean, I agree with everything Commissioner Aguilera said. Still trying to decide how to vote on it. One thing that just struck me as odd is the history of RFPs with El Paso is they would hire a independent evaluator to assess their bid process. So that was one of my questions. Is this process that you're proposing, are you going to quit doing that? And then broadly, you know, agree that the whole point of the rule here was to ensure that RFP processes are competitive and fair, and El Paso's in running that maybe with what they're asking. So that's why I wanted to ask them some questions. You know, one of my working definitions of wisdom is there's plenty of things I can do. There's a shorter list of things I should do. And so broadly, and this applies to all the utilities, we get these IRP questions and they come across to me as, hey, help me figure out the absolute minimum I can do with an IRP. Draw the requirements as narrowly as possible for me. And as I've said at open meetings in the past, that's not wise. You know, the whole, one of the things that helps with us determining what's in the public interest is hearing from the community that is going to be served by utility service. And IRP is a tremendous opportunity for you to help build at least understanding, if not consensus, about what you're doing. So if you're viewing IRP as a chore and let me get away with doing the least I can do, you're designing a process that's going to be contentious when you bring the resources here. And contention is going to lead to delay. It's going to lead to unpredictable outcomes for you. So I just don't get it. I don't understand why utilities take that attitude towards IRP and then this thing's a quibble about how the rule was written, really, and so who cares? Look at what the intention of the rule was supposed to be. Manage your business from the framework of you're providing a public service, so serve your public, right? So don't try to just get me to tell you, here's the least you're gonna get away with. Instead lean into what is the goal of an IRP and do that. And it's just odd. So it could be, again, back to wisdom, just because you've asked for clarification of whether legally a requirement of the rule applies or not, that doesn't mean you can't do it. So is EPE telling us they are not going to give people an opportunity to comment on their RFP before they release it? And that's, the rule requires not just the public, not just the customers they serve, but also commission. So is that what you're cutting out by doing the RFP the way you're doing it? And I agree with Commissioner Aguilera's statement. It's just a head scratcher that we can go from renewable plan hearing this week where it's a feature, not a bug, that we limited a solar resource to 50 megawatts. But on the other hand, we got this massive need for new resources. Like, it just doesn't make sense. So IRP's opportunity for utilities to help people make some sense. So I don't know how the commission was going to decide this when I came into the meeting. Again, I view it as just a quibble over how the rule was written. I came in here prepared to, with the speech you just heard, I didn't anticipate Commissioner Aguilera's comments, which are, I think, in addition to what I am trying to say here. I don't see any conflict between what we're trying to communicate here. And then going back to wisdom, if you're going to proceed in this fashion, I think you should read Commissioner Fishman's comments. I mean, to his credit, Commissioner Fishman argues with your interpretation of the rule. Our legal staff agrees with staff and EPE on how the rule is written. But again, who cares? Commissioner Fishman gave you a blueprint for a way that you can at least limit the potential damage you're creating by the path you seem to be communicating here. So anyway, that was, I was go back to your first comment. It's like, why are you even putting us in the position to answer that question? Do your job, serve your customers. Thanks.
I certainly don't have the history or maybe even the depth of understanding of much of what is going on maybe behind the scenes. I looked at this order and looked at the IRP simply as a procedural type thing. Are they under prior? Is the current process under the prior rules or is it under the current rule? So it was fairly clear to me that the IRP, when it was approved by this commission, was under the prior set of rules, and that's what this order does. It just clarifies that that process will be judged by the procedures that are set forth in the prior rules. I don't have an issue with that. But what I'm hearing from my fellow commissioners is a continuation of maybe frustration and concern that frankly dates back to our meeting in Las Cruces. I think every meeting since then, we've had an issue regarding El Paso Electric and wondering what is really going on behind the scenes. Well, why aren't they filing reports now? Why aren't they giving us information that we need to conduct our business and review? It's not that like, Mr. Adjournment said, I don't think this commission is unreasonable, but we do need to be informed. We do need to have information to make those decisions. And we do want to not be surprised by things or frankly have things just thrown in our face. We're not going to submit this. So, I was prepared to vote in favor because I saw it simply as a clarification as to which set of rules that they need to follow. And that's what this order does. The underlying issues, which seem to be more problematic, again, I would say maybe it's time that this commission have a meeting with the president of El Paso Electric in a commission meeting and find out what in the world is going on that they seem to be continuing to not adhere to even our written rules, let alone the intention of rules that you pointed out today. And the only way to get to the bottom of those things is maybe have a frank conversation with the person that can make some changes. That's the person at the top. I see that we do have a person at the top of another utility here today. Welcome, Adrian. But I'm kind of a direct person, and if we have a problem with an entity, we ought to be talking to the person at the top of that organization and just get to the bottom, find out what the problem is. So for me, procedurally, I think the order is pretty simple. It's the underlying issues that I think are causing a much greater problem, and maybe further highlight some of the issues we've talked about the last two meetings, going back to the meeting in Las Cruces. So I would throw that out, Mr. Chair. I would encourage us to maybe really think about issuing a subpoena or making a request for an appearance at a future meeting and have that meeting. Try to really get to the bottom of some of this, because I don't think it's going to change unless we have a conversation and go straight to the top, not rely on people to maybe send back communications through corporate channels. So that'd be my comment.
Yeah, you made a hit on a lot of really good points, and I think emphasizes the point that I was trying to make, which is largely about communication. And I think just the area that we're working in right now in New Mexico, we have different utilities, and I feel like the other utilities are communicating their plans, but El Paso is not, and they're coming in last minute and asking for, well, I shouldn't characterize it, but questions like this one, and it's baffling, and I really do think it's about communication, because we're trying to help the same customers. I want to solve these issues as well. And if there are valid interconnection requests for large loads, I see it as part of my job to help accommodate those customers. So I think it's largely about communication. And so if El Paso would take you up on that offer, Commissioner Nivert, I think that would be a step in the right direction.
Mr. Fisk procedurally feels like we have the opportunity to answer a dumb question or just do nothing. What's the result of do nothing?
Commissioner, will there be an outstanding petition that the commission would not have ruled on? And I would advise the commission to rule on this petition, because every petition that comes before the commission should be ruled. The commission would like to come out another way on this, other than granting the request for clarification. And the commission could take no action today, and the view within the another order in the future.
For that, I'm inclined to agree it's better to do nothing, do something than nothing. And again, just it was framed up as a how do you read the rules question. So that appreciate your suggestion of just clarifying that, yeah, if you want to take this path, that's what the rule says, which is sounds like our Commissioner Nyberg read also. And I don't know if we need to include in the document the statement that just because that's the least you can do, it might not be what you should do.
I'm wondering if, in addition to an order, whether it would be appropriate to have the commission send a letter to us, so expressing the concerns that we've raised not only here, but a number of other concerns have been raised the last two meetings, and what appears to me is a number of concerns that you all, the two of you, have been having to deal with over a much longer period of time. And put that in a letter to the president of El Paso Electric and telling him that, you know, we want to meet, or that we feel that it would be prudent to meet or something, because we can't have, we can't make progress in trying to serve the public in their geographic area unless we get to the bottom of some of these issues. We're going to continue to deal with what appears to be failure to file, late filings, and a host of other issues. And you know, I recognize that in their service territory, New Mexico's about 20% of their customer base. But the customers in New Mexico are entitled to the same respect and the same level of service as they may afford those on the other side of the state line. And it's our responsibility to protect New Mexico customers and to make sure that there's a good relationship. I don't know how else to do it other than maybe communicating directly with the guy at the time. Maybe in addition to the order, we need to have something else. So if you all would be in favor of something like that, maybe the motion would be made with also have us craft that, because I think we have to approve things in meetings. We couldn't do it outside of the meeting. But, maybe that motion should be not just order, but something in addition to an order that you all feel would be appropriate to communicate with.
Yeah, it's a different approach than we usually take, but I mean, it sounds like it could work effectively for me. I think that if, our general counsel's office is also fine with that and they can consider that, that sounds like a good approach. I would, um, maybe it could be posted in this docket. And we don't have to rule on this, answer this question today.
Well, that's why I was asking the question, Mr. Fisk, if, because was it asked in a way that if we take no action, it gets answered by the calendar?
I'm sorry, Mr. O'Connell, I missed the last.
Well, sometimes when we get requests that if we don't respond in 30 days, the request is automatically decided. So that was really what I was trying to understand.
Well, Commissioner O'Connell, EPE did make what I consider an unreasonable request to have this decided by July 1st, even though they filed it on June 3rd. It's a very short time. And the commission requested responses. And so that was the timeline that EPE asked for. So we're past that. So there isn't some certain deadline ahead of us that would alter it.
Okay, so what you're envisioning is, I agree, what we've been trying ain't working, so let's try something else. Ask OGC to draft a letter and at a future answer the question, decide whether it's better.
You know, I'm just throwing that out. I don't know if we need to do it in a future meeting or whether we do it today, but I think if we don't do anything, then we're gonna keep getting the same results. I think the message needs to be set because I sense deeper frustration that frankly isn't benefiting anyone, this agency or necessarily before the festival agenda service. We need to come to some resolution.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I think a potential avenue for the commissioners is to, you could deny the petition, keep the docket open and decide today to send that letter. And then, Mr. Fisk could work with one of the commissioners outside of the meeting to draft a letter. And again, you could decide today that that's the way you want to go, and then it doesn't need a further vote in order to draft it and send it, or have him work with somebody to draft it and then have it come back again in front of the commission to decide if we all approve of the letter.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I would like time to draft any order that would deny the petition.
Mr. Chair, if we do that, yes, we're saying that we're not providing any clarification as to whether a IRP that was initiated and approved under the old regulations, whether it is subject to the new regulations or not. So we're not clarifying that issue for anyone. Seems to me that that's what was asked for. Part of our job is to make sure all rules are clear, people understand what the process is. That's how I saw this whole thing. So I was troubled by the request that it was saying it follows the old, you're under the old rules since your RFP was approved under that old rule. So that's what I thought we were really doing. if we deny it or we don't provide that clarification to the issue, it's still up in the air. I'm not sure that does anything.
Yeah, again, I wholeheartedly agree with that philosophy. This instance is a case of last impression. Only 3 utilities that are subject to IRP rule. El Paso's the last one through. Everybody in their next cycle will clearly fall under the system. So it was kind of a deal with the transition from old rule to new rule. So, yeah, I think there's value in saying, yep. When does the new rule apply broadly? So if there's something to say about that, that's what I was. This is focused on the narrow thing that EP asked.
Frankly, I'm surprised they even asked for clarification. If I were general counsel for EPE, I would have told them to do more than to go with. Not even ask for clarification.
Yeah, and well, I think, going back to what I was explaining, I think this is a question that should not have been asked. I don't appreciate the position that El Paso is putting us in, and I think that if we were to vote on sending a letter that aligns with the spirit of this conversation, the concerns expressed, the next step could be decided by El Paso. They either withdraw this or they file a replacement application, maybe something with a plan. So I don't know. And also given that this is a case of last impression, which I've never heard that term, I didn't really like it. I don't know that this is a question that we have to answer, because the request could change as a result of the letter.
I think I should mention, Mr. Chair, before I just remembered this as I'm volunteering Mr. Fisk's time. He will be off next week. So I can factor that in as far as the having a little draft and things like that. Sorry, Russ.
I can volunteer MacLee's time. He's gotten pretty adept at putting documents together just based off the YouTube transcript. So we could get a first draft of a letter just based on today's conversation fairly quickly. And then, yeah, Commissioner Nyberg and I are gonna be in Boston, but still have email, I think. East Coast, but so weird world out there, but we'll find that. And then, yeah. So anyway, I coalescing around Commissioner Aguilera's suggestion here is, but let's today just choose to do a letter in the spirit of this conversation, volunteer MacLeod to draft it, and then hopefully you can get it in time that Mr. Fisk can review it. And then I'm SSO through the end of July. So if it comes up in my tenure as single signature officer signer, I'm happy to do that. If it leads into early August, whoever's up for August, I'm happy for that to happen. So that way we could get the thing issued before next opening.
Do we need a motion to authorize that letter in the open meeting?
I think that's probably a good idea. Yeah.
And I would, Mr. Chair, I make the motion that we authorize the issue until the letter that will be drafted, be sent to El Paso Electric, highlighting the issues that we've discussed today and those that have been raised past few meetings.
And could I add to that we would be delegating authority to Commissioner O'Connell to finalize the order.
The SSO commissioner.
So I would put that.
Thank you.
I think that was I followed that. And I understand that it would be whoever is the commissioner in charge of issuing single signature orders whenever the letter is ready. And so with that understanding, I'll second the motion.
One question, the single signature order person is just doing the letter, but all three names will appear on the letter and will be signed by all of us, because I think that message needs to reflect the unanimity of this commission on those issues. And it needs to show the seriousness of the issues that you all have raised.
I agree with that.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I think that makes sense, and I just put this to the commissioners. If you, since it's not an order, it's not technically going to be in SSO, so do you want to have Commissioner O'Connell follow this through even after he's not the single signature order commissioner? Because you'll be next, Commissioner Aguilera, in August.
Right, and that's why I was saying, yeah, my idea is that it would not be a single signature order. It just the responsibility of finalizing the letter, although I do agree that probably want to all look at it. So I think that's why we're taking a vote right now. That, yeah, so agreed, it would not be a single signature order. I think it would have everybody's signature, and it would probably have a different format because it's a letter. And then just the responsibility, I think, to clarify who's in charge of issuing it is the person who is in charge of the single signature orders at the time that the letter is ready. Do we need to revise our motion at all? I think we're on the same page.
Sounds like it can be simplified. Consider.
Would you like me to take a stab at that?
Please.
I think the motion that is under consideration right now is a motion to issue a letter to El Paso Electric, raising the issue with the current petition as well as the previous few meetings where EPE has raised other issues, and to have that letter be signed by all three commissioners when it's finished, to have whoever happens to be the SSO commissioner be the one who works with Mr. Fisk to have that letter drafted and finalized.
Was Nick Lee, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Was Nick Lee doing the first draft, remember?
That's right.
So moved. We get a second?
Commissioner Nyberg was the original movement. Sorry, the seconder.
You're good with it. Okay, so then I will second.
More discussion. Commissioner O'Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Aguilera,
Yes.
Commissioner Nyberg.
Yes.
The motion to do what we said we were gonna do what you said you were gonna do, and issue the letter passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russell.
Okay. Phew. Next up, we have Jason Montoya from the Pipeline Safety Bureau, who will provide their quarterly report. Turn it over to you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Before I get started, and after hearing that, there's not going to be any surprises from the Pipeline Safety Bureau. Let's just set that straight. And I shared this with the executive team last week, but what a very unique time it is in pipeline safety. We kind of have a little bit of everything of why we exist going on right now. With the scheduled inspections, an incident that we have an ongoing investigation, the wildfires, the flooding. And it just reminds me of how we're always busy and then we're busier. And then we go back to just being busy. True. And so, I just wanted to take a moment and applaud the Pipeline Safety Bureau staff for always being adaptable and flexible when these events occur. Obviously, we can't predict when they are going to happen, but every single one of them that has been called upon has stepped up and worked extra hours, been in areas in New Mexico that we needed them to be in. And we're just getting the job done and collaborating with utility companies and FEMA and other industries and agencies that are responding to these tragic events. And so our hearts go out to the communities, but we're here to help them on behalf of the PRC. I want you to know that we're very appreciative of what we've been doing. And with that, it's a good segue into sharing. Let me pause here for a minute and share my screen so everybody can see what. So you should be able to see our current org chart. And I'm only sharing this because I want to give you a quick update since the last quarterly report. We have had some changes. We've had a few people leave. We have a few vacancies that we are making a high priority to backfill. Unfortunately, we have a little bit of a delay in working with SPO and the reclassification project that they're doing. And so I believe August 2nd is our target date where we're going to actually advertise and fill 3 of the 4 vacancies. We already have a wait list of applicants interested in joining our bureau. People are sending us their resumes and wanting us to read it ahead of time, which is awesome. I don't think we've ever had that in Pipeline Safety Bureau in the 15+ years I've been here. One of the changes that I am going to share with you is because of the fiber projects that we have been talking about here and in the field and whatnot. We are going to move one of the positions over to assist our damage prevention program, primarily in the Albuquerque metropolitan area, because we're anticipating that's going to be another 5 to 7 years of ramping up and getting those fiber projects done. And so we've been able to recruit qualified individuals in our pipeline safety programs under Zane Ward and Casey Dunn. And so we were kind of a little weary of who we were going to get. But the fact that we have people with industry knowledge that are actually committed to being part of the Bureau for a long period of time gives us that flexibility and be able to take a person and say, hey, we need some assistance over here. This is where the real work is. And so that's kind of why you see that last leg there under damage prevention program, which we are anticipating again to advertise come August 2nd. The other reason I'm sharing this with you is we recently had the 2024 federal program evaluation done. And even though we're in the 98th percentile, it's still not perfect. And so there's always room for improvement. And it has been due to just having lead inspectors available to get the work done. And as you know, we conduct inspections on a 5-year period. And last year, unfortunately, a couple didn't get done because some people retired or they went about their business. And it was hard to backfill that assignment and get it done before December 31st. Ideally, we anticipate to be fully staffed between now and the end of the year, calendar year, that is. And so as people get trained and qualified, we can then spread the burden across these individuals on who's responsible for it. And if somebody were to leave, we can easily delegate that work to a qualified person. That's where we struggled. We didn't have, 4 or 5 qualified people that have already gone through the PHMSA TQ training, which is pretty robust. It's instructor led. In the first 3 years, there's at least 9 weeks that they have to be there and successfully pass it. And so that's been on our radar and working with the agency on getting this filled. The other area that I am focusing on is following up and closing our caseload. So even though we conduct the inspection and we might identify some non-compliant issues, our job's not done. We still need to ensure that a sufficient corrective action plan has been implemented. We need to make sure and hold those operators accountable. And so even though the next cycle of inspections gets piled on, we still have the follow-up work to do from the previous calendar year. And so that's an area of focus for us now through the remainder of 2024. We have also implemented a do not travel, park yourself month every January now. So we're going to be focusing on just revisiting what transpired the previous year. What can we do to get better this calendar year, make the assignments to the lead inspectors, and then they can go about their business for that calendar year. And so here's kind of a snapshot of what the second quarter looked like, and then also a year to date. A familiar slide I'm sure you guys have seen from me before. Quite a few inspections done the second quarter. I think 34. Not quite as many in the first quarter, but we did ramp up in February, March of the first quarter. That incident accident number is low. As you may have heard me before, the Congress passed a rule where a spit of oil on the ground now is reportable. And so we're going to get a lot of those reports, even though it doesn't require us to deploy and conduct a thorough investigation. It's still reportable, so it's on our radar. We have to document it and report it. And so this one, I believe, was a third-party incident that is isolated, in my opinion. Thankfully, no significant incidents or accidents which have resulted in fatalities. Right, that's my biggest concern, or significant property damage, hospitalization, things of that nature. The excavation damages that have been reported are trending a record-breaking year, as I shared with Commissioner Chairman Aguilera last time, because of the fire budget and just the volume of work that has been going on there. You may have heard that the city of Albuquerque issued stop work orders to 2 of the 3 companies. Those have since been lifted last Monday. And so we're in the ramp up phase. We had about a 3-hour meeting with the city of Albuquerque and all the fire companies to revisit what the expectation bar is and anticipate us to be patrolling job sites to ensure compliance. So unannounced, unscheduled site safety checks, if you will, to make sure that they are compliant to prevent these underground damages. A lot of the complaints that are coming in from the general public are either subsurface or above ground. And I'm telling the city that you're responsible for driveways and back curb and asphalt's not me. I'll protect the underground infrastructure and take responsibility for it. So we've been doing a lot of training, a lot of outreach, trying to just educate the community on all the new rules. Now that the rulemaking has been introduced to the commission, which is on consent today, we haven't had as many meetings, but they are very well aware of what's transpiring with that case as well. The online class attendance, that's a low number for me right now. I anticipate that to grow significantly because we just sent a wave of notice of probable violation letters that will require mandatory online training. That's where they actually have to sit. I went through that training in a class about a month ago with one company that's working in Albuquerque, and it took me 3.5 hours. And so I can imagine somebody with less experience, probably 4 to 6 hour class, which is what we want. I mean, honestly, I don't want people sitting there for 30 minutes and just breezing through it and selecting CC and passing the test and going about the business. So we do want them to be attentive. And really with that, commissioners, Mr. Chairman and commissioners, that's really our second quarter report. There's a lot going on to spend the rest of the day talking pipeline with you, damage mentioned, but I don't want to bore you to death.
Thank you for your report, and what you just said comes through every time. It's great to have public servants such as yourself who really loves what you do, that we get good results that way. So thank you for that, and very interested to hear about. As a commissioner, I'm a huge fan of competition, so very much looking forward to having new service providers on internet in Albuquerque, especially because I was one of those that had the full day outage recently.
Yeah.
So anyway, just working through that transition to where we'll have more providers, I think we'll be better off in the long run. But thank you for helping getting that.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner O'Connell, that was the Comcast outage, I believe you referred to.
Yeah,
And-
be 10% of Albuquerque.
Yeah, there's 15,000 or more customers out. Admittedly, the utility companies are as much, if not more, responsible for the underground damages. And that's one of the cases. It wasn't the fiber company or the contract police, but
Thank you. Shifting gears from the fiber to maybe some of the natural gas pipelines, oil pipelines in the southeast. Have you seen an increase or a decrease in the number of miles or pipelines that are getting put in here? What's the oil patch?
We, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, we've actually seen a slight increase in mileage, mainly because of the gathering pipelines that are now subject to our jurisdiction. And so those operators have never been under our or the federal purview before. And so by default, the mileage is going to increase just because now it's reportable. It wasn't before. As far as new construction, they are required to submit a notice of intent to construct within 30 days of advance of the commencement. And I'm surprised we haven't seen more this year. But during that pipeline safety fee case, we do a calculation. I've seen the number of services drop, the number of mileage of transmission and gathering pipelines increase. It was just kind of surprising to me, honestly. It's been a little bit less this year than I've noticed in other years, but pretty stable.
I think the rig count has gone down slightly. You know, the price hovering in the 60 range is not going to prompt a lot of extra drilling. And so rig count has maybe tapered off a little bit, but the wells that have come on, I would think you guys would be pretty busy with the gathering systems that are being expanded. And that, of course, is all on top of the inspection and existing pipelines.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, great question. I've talked about the gathering project in some of my previous presentations, but just to touch on it real quickly, we've inherited over 30,000 miles of pipe just with that new gathering loop that's approved. And I'm anticipating more operators coming online that aren't even aware that they're subject to those regulations. And so we have been working with the federal government. They have now taken a strong position that if it has a FERC tariff, it is interstate. If it doesn't, it is intrastate. And so that's where we're now starting to draw the line in between what is subject to state, what is subject to federal. And so that's going to increase the number of operators, the number of mileage that we will have under our jurisdiction. I will, admittedly, the regulation breaks gathering down into 4 components. So there's type A, B, C, and then type R. Type R makes up a lot of that mileage, which is just a reporting component. So not all of the regulation applicable to type R. We're just gathering the data and then trying to determine what regulations do we want to apply to that industry, because some may not make business sense for them. But like audit protection and safe operation and maintenance does to prevent injury to persons and property. So that, but a lot of that 30,000 feet that I just mentioned is under the type R component. So we get courtesy calls, notifications, annual reports, and that's the limit of the regulations that are applicable to them. So there's not really a periodic inspection that we have to go out and conduct. But who knows what's going to happen in the future with any future rulemakings that might be forthcoming.
Looks like you certainly have a lot to do to stay busy. And I certainly understand the busier times, particularly when you have events that like are happening in Albuquerque, where probably didn't have an idea that you're going to have to spend so much time and effort on the fiber that you spend. But anyway, appreciate all that you and your bureau do. With a pretty limited staff as well.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, thank you for that. We'll keep trying, keep pushing.
Well, thank you and for the presentation and your bureau also for the work that you do. So the last item on the agenda before we can adjourn is communications with commissioners. And I have just a few things to mention. I signed up for the training that's conducted by Northwestern's Institute for Regulatory Law and Economics from October 9 through 13. So that's a NARUC endorsed educational program, and That'll be part of the annual training that I need to take under the statute. Also wanted to mention that I'll be going to a Western Commissioners Summit in Scottsdale, Arizona. That's from September 8th through 10th. Commissioners might be going to that as well. And then the PREPC meeting is scheduled for October 1 through 3, and that overlaps with our open meeting. So we'll want to think about how to handle that. One option could be to make that meeting a virtual meeting. I'm the co-chair of PREPC, and so I'll need to be there also to lead that meeting. But I think we have a little bit of time to decide that. Those are the communications that I have.
Well, as was mentioned earlier in the meeting, Commissioner O'Connell and I will be in Boston for a NARUC meeting. I am going to sign up for that virtual accounting and maybe rate making class that will occur. And we'll also be attending the Scottsdale meeting for the Western Commissioners. The other thing that I need to bring to your attention is, I believe I was looking at the calendar for the rest of the year, and we have an open meeting scheduled for Thanksgiving Day. We have an open meeting scheduled for, I believe, Christmas Day. And I don't know how the commission normally handles those, but I suspect we're probably going to change those days, but probably a good time now to start looking at suitable times to move those dates. And then I guess the only other thing probably ought to recognize Mr. Rodriguez and Ms. Scramble who stepped in from Southwestern Public Service Company. And so appreciate them being here today.
So inside joke for me and Mr. Cameron is apparently lawyers can read calendars, so congratulations.
The previous chair already decided that we were gonna have those meetings on Thanksgiving Day and Christmas Day, so you're welcome to the regulated public.
Yeah, the potlucks with playing it, right? But so anyway, in addition, we talked about Boston, and the Kansas City meeting is shaping up to be another significant one in the history of SPP. And then in addition to the other, I tried to work out my schedule for the rest of the year also just recently. And so I'm going to be attending this thing called the Western Power Players in the last week of August. And that's just a group of folks interested in energy issues. It's convened by a guy who was a former legislator in Colorado and now is, I think, executive director at co-op in Durango, Colorado. So anyway, be attending that last week of August. And for training, I'm gonna go to training offered by Cal ISO EDAM market. So that'll be late September. So in addition to those normally things that I'm filling out that time, and then next week looking forward to Boston. We've got quite a few things, mostly between Sunday and Monday. For N10 collaboration is meeting Sunday morning. Focus of the conversation there is RTO governance with using RA as a way to explore governance. So looking forward to that conversation. And then we've got a Western Commissioners meeting Monday afternoon. I'm moderating a panel Monday afternoon about also resource adequacy. Fair warning to anybody who shows up, it's a panel of, I don't know how I found 5 nerds, but I got them. So it's going to be pretty heavy on technical info and trying to address a audience of commissioners, so hopefully that goes well. And then, so that's what's top of mind for me is just preparing for those two next things, Boston and Kansas City. And then public meeting following. So that's all I got.
Well, thank you. So it's for, in terms of the schedule for the open meetings, maybe Mr. Cameron, if you could, your staff look at the cases and that might help also determine what, how we should, schedule those meetings based on what cases we have. Obviously, we won't want to meet on Thanksgiving or Christmas days. It would be very popular. So, with that, I think we are good to adjourn unless there's any opposition to that. Okay, we're adjourned.